You're listening to Yo FM,
Pursuing Ancestral Medicine with
Vanessa and
Cesar Barreras, coming to you live from
Plains Maidu and Nisenan Territory, otherwise known as Sacramento, California,
and Kumeyaay Territory here in Southern California. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast with the best audience. Yes, I'm talking about you guys. So have you guys heard about the show, Rutherford Falls? It's out there in Peacock. Go check it out. And we're actually going to play it for you, a short excerpt of the trailer. So here with you guys, the trailer of Rutherford Falls.
400 years ago, my patriarchal ancestor, Lawrence Rutherford, founded our town. Anyone see the resemblance?
I definitely see it. It's in the jaw, the shoulders, the chest, and probably some other places.
Okay, thank you. I am the steward of my family's legacy that will resonate throughout history.
And you have a museum.
You're gonna get yours too.
This is a ginormous casino. But nobody wants to help my cultural center.
The only native artifacts in here are those bands.
You seem smart. I'm guessing lots of college. Not Ivy League, but so close it drives you crazy.
Northwestern.
What? I'm gonna get this town on my side.
Yeah. And I'm gonna transform my cultural center.
This town has forgotten how to honor their ancestors.
Can we focus on the problems that are actually important?
Big Larry's important.
More important than the opioid crisis.
Apples and oranges, Carla.
There's something happening in that town. This is a story about stories.
Damn, the podcasting voice is very manipulative.
So that was the trailer for Rutherford Falls. What do you think, Sai? I mean, we just gotta let the audience know, though, too. There are spoilers, because we have watched the first 3 episodes. They are free on Peacock, correct?
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored, Peacock. Not sponsored. But we did watch it, so there are spoilers ahead. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it first and then come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Peacock. Hey, hook a couple of Yaqui Indians, with the premium subscription. Right now, we're listening to the first 3 for free, so I don't know what's going to happen next, but hook us up.
Hook us up, man. Hook us up. So I really liked the show. I admit the second episode was my favorite episode, because I had to warm up to it a little bit after the first episode. But there are these characters, and they're complicated characters, and they throw some curveballs in there, and they throw a lot of humor, tons and tons of humor, tons of native humor, which was really nice to see. So I don't know, what were some highlights for you, Sai? What were some things that just made you laugh out loud?
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. Second episode for me was the funniest. Definitely a lot of res native humor that just provides an incredible amount of context, and I have to give huge props to the writers, especially Sierra Taylor, native writer, and putting her art in full display in this show. But plenty of material to chew on today.
Yeah.
Probably for me the most memorable part in it, and I have to say it, was when
Ray's mom, huh? It was Ray's mom.
Yes, you already know. You already know. It's so interesting because I can relate to it. I can relate to this.
I want to hear more about that.
the pressure of having to marry to another native person, it is real, especially with the grannies and the grandpas out there. But yeah, no. I was laughing. It's your fault that he ended up marrying a white woman.
Yeah, I loved it how she said it too, though. She was like, "Because of you, Ray married a white woman." She just said it like that, like flat out loud. It was perfect.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, no, that was one of my favorite parts of episode 2. What caught your attention and why, if I have to ask?
About that particular part or overall?
Overall, yeah. What was your favorite?
I really relate to Regan so much when Terry approaches her and says, "Hey, a lot of people don't like you. Pretty much everybody doesn't like you." And she's like, "Oh yeah, because I'm City Indian and I got my degree." And when she says, "I walk my dog on the leash," I love that, because I walk my dog on a leash. But it's funny because my parents let the dogs out just to run around. So I relate to Regan so much, and I'm so glad they have her character involved, because again, it's not just like this stereotype of this, like, okay, stoic native, all the different things that we could think of. It's this complicated person that has this whole history, and character is played by, and I'm hoping I say this right, Jana Schmieding, and she's Lakota. And she started she started a podcast. So who knows? Maybe she'll listen to our podcast if she's into podcasts. But she started a podcast called Women of Size. So I haven't listened to that yet.
Size, yeah,
Women
that's right.
of Size. But yeah, I want to check it out just because it caught my attention the whole show, and I want to learn more about her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I read it as well. I have to go check that. We have to check that podcast out.
Yeah. Definitely.
Woman of Size. It's quite a very interesting show. Like we were talking about, it's got tons of humor, tons of things that are just very, very relevant to Indian country today, right?
So, Sai, what was your favorite part? What were the highlights for you?
For me, the highlights. Oh. I went back. See, this is what we did. That would have gone viral. Why? We would have been.
I'm keeping that. I get to edit, so I get to keep it.
Why?
You're too nervous about the second episode, our second episode, the favorite episode. Oh my God, too many episodes to talk about.
You know what? We have to keep that in the podcast.
What just happened, Sai? What did you do?
A little context to the audience on what just happened. Why just asked me what my favorite part of the show was, and I was so surprised by the show that I fell backwards on my chair. So I was able to hold on though. I didn't completely fall. I did so with grace, in case you guys are wondering.
You're
okay.
fine. You're okay. But that's quite a review, right? It just got you falling out of your chair. It got you falling out of your chair. Laughing out loud, falling out of your chair, definitely.
Yeah. Well, any favorite parts about the show? Why that you got?
Well, I'm curious, and let me know what you think. So there's Nathan, right? At first, it focuses a lot on Nathan, and I think that's why I like the second episode, because we get to learn more about Regan. But Nathan, it's funny because my husband asked this question. He was like, "Hey, is Nathan toasted or not toasted?" And I didn't know what to say. I was like, you know what? I don't know. I think he's just toasting. Like, it's really hard to tell. It's too early to tell. Because there are some, like in the second episode, he sticks up for Bobby, right? After the drunken racist professor says some shit, like, he sticks up. So, it's hard to tell, but that is the question I have for everybody out there. Let us know. What do you think, Nathan? Is he toasted, not toasted, or toasting? Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think that's going to spark an interesting conversation that we hope you as the listener can really join us into really examining or deeply dissecting the concept of or the ideology that, okay, we have to use this opportunity to whoever hasn't listened to the first episode. Our wife Vanessa coined this term. It has to get added to Urban Dictionary. I'm telling you.
It has to. That's my goal.
She coined the term toasted, right, to describe a person that is not of color, right? And again, why? Just to emphasize, what does toasted mean?
So the way it came about, and I know I shared this in the first episode, but I'll just share it briefly, is a friend of mine and I were talking about our mentors, our professors in school, and we were like, man, we can't just describe them as these white guys, because it's different. They were safe to go to. So we came up with the word, they're toasted, like, and that became an in-group word to kind of signal to other people of color, like, hey, that white dude's toasted, that they're safe to go to, it's cool. Or also to signal when there's not someone who's not an ally, someone who's not good to be around, who's not toasted, who's definitely not looking out for your best interests. So it's an in-group word. So
yeah, in-group word, absolutely. So now that the audience has more context we invite you to listen to episode 1, but if you're joining us on episode 2, now you have more context to the word toasted. So what do you guys think? What does the audience think? Because I have to agree with you, why I quite still cannot fully grasp onto this concept to say Nathan is toasted yet.
Yeah. Just
because he can have his moments. Like you mentioned, he can have his moments where he really sparks and shines as someone, like when he had that interaction with the professor, he really stood up for Bobby, and that was a monumental progress, I think, in the character of Nathan. But at the same time, previously and even afterwards, that happens in episode 2. Previously and afterwards, he's got these moments where he doesn't shine that bright, and makes us question, like, what's going on here with Nathan's progress, right?
Yeah, I mean, do you remember that part when Terry, the CEO of the casino, comes to visit Nathan, and they're looking at the toothbrush, right? Which the stick, to brush one's teeth, the chewing stick. And Nathan's like, yeah, we got this from your ancestors, gave this technology to our ancestors, and we sold it to everybody. And Terry says, well, I guess we got the short end of the stick. I mean, that was like a tense moment, but then Terry starts laughing, and it's like, oh man, Nathan, you need to calm down a little bit. Yeah. Like, he's so excited about his own past and his own history. It's very Rutherford centric, right? He when it comes to talking to Regan about the cultural center, it's more like he's just saying, oh yeah, go for it, I support you. But I don't see him putting in the work. And we kind of talked about this, about when it comes to putting in the work, being a participant. I don't see Nathan yet putting in the work to really help Regan out with her cultural center. But I see her like sweat and tears helping him out with his little museum and keeping up with his family's history. And I don't see that that being a fair exchange yet. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen reciprocity from Nathan back to the efforts that Regan is putting in, not just as a friend, because I think she is going far and beyond to what we could expect from our friends. In my opinion, I think she's doing the kind of work that you see from those friends that we consider chosen family.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of hard to see for Nathan, not to fully understand, his position at times, right? And going back to that scene, that you mentioned about the toothbrush, right? We can totally understand how Nathan still doesn't get it, right? As he says, like, oh, he has this quote that he says, oh, you get it, or you guys don't get it, right? To use it interchangeably to describe something that kind of caters to his family's legacy.
Yeah.
But he tells, Michael Gray Eyes here, he tells him, can I use that joke when I talk about this? Right? And he says, of course not, dude. Of course not, right?
We've had those moments with our white friends. I mean, I swear, like, all the white friends I'm really close to, they kind of, they insert that, like, hey, is this okay? Like, was this okay? I mean, we've seen this in some other shows like Silicon Valley, but here it's really apparent that, Nathan's asking, and Terry just shuts him down. Is like, no, that's not yours to use, dude. Don't take that. You've taken a lot of everything else, so don't take that one. But yeah, it's very interesting because I feel like that's very relatable to a lot of POC. A lot of people of color can relate to having that one white friend that will we let them slide. Like, you were talking about this, like letting people slide when they're close to you, right? And so I think with Nathan, he's been very comfortable in his living and upbringing with the way things are and keeping the things the way they are. But yeah, we all have that white friend. We all have that one white friend that'll ask us, is this okay, or was that bad? Was that bad? Tell me the truth. So, and that's okay. That's okay to ask. Like, I'm glad Nathan asked, but it's still, he's still not, it's not clicking yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And going back to that point, and I still want to use this relationship between Regan and Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was right after that, where actually right when they're meeting, right, when Regan convinces him to basically give this speech, right, to address the community that it's time to move the statue, or it's okay to move the statue, let go. Nathan is describing all these, so-called struggles, right? How can they erase your history? Like, how can people live with that? How can they do that to us? Like, in a very, you can tell he was speaking from the heart, frustration,
yeah,
anger, almost like these like really rallied up, right? And just the response that Regan just goes to him, like, dude, that's been my life.
Yeah.
Like, all this time, like, all along, like, that's Native people for you right there. Like, and it kind of just, hits you, it's just that punch of reality, like that cold bucket of ice water that hits you. Like, you realize, like, yeah, Native people have been dealing with these issues for hundreds of years, and they have gotten the short end of the stick all along, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty impressive that this kind of relationship can be displayed in a screen that is massively broadcasted out there for people to see.
The writers definitely inserted a lot of irony when it comes to Nathan. There's so much irony. It's just it's refreshing to see, like, out there, that they're putting those topics out there and really holding up the mirror to these issues, and kind of highlighting, like, hey Nathan, like, look, you're going through all this stuff and it's frustrating, but yeah, Regan has to tell him, like, hey, that's what Native people have been going through, so deal with it. It's like, is that what's white? Okay, I don't know if you've ever heard the term white fragility, right? That's not what white fragility is, though, yet. Not yet, right? It's when the professor is like, oh, the PC police, like, they're gonna come after me, and he gets all up in arms about wanting to say whatever he wants, no matter how horrific it is. So it's just they throw in so many, like, social justice terms that you don't hear the terms, but you see it in action, right? So the writers, I think, did a tremendous job in trying to show that irony and the hypocrisy, and also the real issues that a lot of us can relate to. I think every one of us can relate to.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by the kind of work that they did and they put into the show. It just, you can also observe in even really small interactions as well. When we have Nathan and Regan when they're about to join this, like, town council meeting or town hall meeting, where everybody shows up at the patio in front of the museum. Right before that, Nathan is telling Regan, like, yeah, I'm getting the support from such and such, and I'm getting the support from such and such. And as they're passing by, just about to get to the audience, they see on their left a group of motorcyclists, right? You know, a couple of women riding motorcycles. It's kind of like this is very, like you mentioned, very ironic interaction, right? When you know, Regan tells her, like, those are your supporters, like, those are the people you're trying to gather the support from, and, you know, he says hi to them. They shout back, like, yeah, Nathan, go take our country back, like, we need to take our country back.
Oh my God, yeah.
And she's like, her response was like, you know, like, it was just like those are your people, like, that's kind of gross. But, you know, I think it kind of describes this ongoing, very common interaction that's happening today, right? Two very polar opposites, you know, people who kind of see, like, the country is being stolen from us, and then the people who have carried a struggle for a long time saying, like, really? You feel like the country's getting stolen from you now? Like, so very powerful writing, I think, is in display in this comedy, you know, and it's done with humor, which is just incredible.
And I don't know if you noticed in one of the first scenes, there was that tour he was giving to the children, right? And he's over here talking about the town and the history and his family's legacy, like you said. But there was this one kid who had a braid, this young man, and he had a shirt that said "Land Back." And I just, oh my gosh, I was just like, yeah, I jumped up and I was just, like, rooting. I was like, yeah, that's right. So it's just having those moments. It's really refreshing to see it on a television, that these concerns and this heartbreak and our frustrations are being expressed in a creative way that hopefully can kind of bridge the gap a little bit and let those who aren't Indigenous kind of know that, yeah, this is going on. It's still going on, and it affects us, and it has this impact, and you could still do something about it now. Like, people still have, like, Nathan has all this power, all this influence. And so I really hope, and I don't know, we haven't seen the other episodes, but I really hope he ends up utilizing it to help Regan out big time.
I sure do hope so. Until this point, as we were discussing earlier, we still can't decide what's going on with Nathan. Like, is this dude toasted? Like, is he going to be a safe haven for Regan to go to in her times of struggle? Like, is he truly going to be that for her, or is he just going to be an obstacle in the road for her to grow? Because sometimes, as we were talking about this, right, sometimes we let some of our friends slide in some of the things that we hear from them, right? Some of the questions they ask, some of the things they believe in. we don't want to lose the friendship, so we let things slide. But to what point does that become toxic for our growth as people, right?
Yeah.
And I really hope that that doesn't become the case in the series. I don't think so. I truly don't see that happening. I think there has to be some sort of transformation here, right? Full transformation, either to one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I'm intrigued. I still can't. I'm with you guys. I'm with you and your husband. I can't decide what's going on with Nathan. Is he getting toasting? Is he toasting? Is he in the process of, like, what's going on with this dude? You know?
Yeah. What were some other? So let's not just focus solely on Nathan, right? There's like all these Indigenous actors, these Native actors that we have to shout out to. If they ever listen to our podcast, that would be amazing. Who's so far have you noticed that you just like you had to look up and look more into their bio, and who you know how they say fangirling about, like, who are you fangirling about? Like, because I'll start. So I don't know if anyone noticed, but the 1491's Bobby Wilson is in the show. And just if Bobby Wilson's listening, I had a crush on him for the longest time. I had a crush on Bobby Wilson. So if he's listening, man, I'm so glad you're in the show. And then they have this whole all these folks. Even the mom, Ray's mom, she's Native. And so just like it's really interesting seeing this this not just representation, but this interaction, right? Like when what did you think when Terry was taking Reagan out to all these houses, all these council member houses to try to talk to them and putting her to work? What did you think about that?
You know, that's one of my favorite parts of Terry and Regan's interactions. And as I was telling you before the podcast started, I said, when we were asking, like, who's your favorite character, you know, and you went ahead and told me about your crush on Bobby Wilson from the 1491s. Bobby, if you're listening, man, I have to tell you something. Y says that she won't answer any DMs from any uncles unless it's coming from you.
Yeah,
so.
there you go.
So watch out, you know.
Watch out, Bobby.
Fight onto her DMs. That's what she's saying. It's fine. That's her. Is that your hall pass? Why? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh my God! No, actually, for the record, Demi Lovato is my celebrity hall pass, but we'll talk about that in another show.
Okay, I don't have a hall pass right now, or I have an open pass, so you know. that's for a different conversation, but
we totally got sidetracked here. We're just like it's just a full tangent we're going on into.
Yeah, but as we were saying, so Michael's and Regan's interactions, I really took them to heart. Probably my favorite part from when they were going place to place was the before he started taking her on this journey of visiting people in the reservation. He kind of gives her this anecdote, right? This comparison, and tells her, like, hey, remember when you went off to college for those 4 years? He said, how many gigs that you have to do in order to get by? She's like, yeah, I have to put in my work in order to get my degree. Like, I have to work on the side, you know, basically do community service, do all these things just for her to accomplish a degree. And then he tells her, like, oh, so do you expect that to be any different now that you came back to your community? Like, do you just expect, you know, basically all open arms without you having to go around and work? He says, who do you think you are? Like, you're not above doing the work. You're not above doing community work.
Yeah.
And I think that really speaks to this whole ideology of being Indigenous, right? What it means to be Indigenous. A lot of people ask, like, what makes you guys different? And it's this whole ideology that community, giving back to the community and being for the community is at the central basis of what our matriarchs have taught us all along. You know, be of service to the community is going to provide for us an avenue which indicates, you know, that we are being good relatives. And then, you know, he goes and takes her on this tour. So what are your favorite parts about this tour?
Oh,
Do you
man,
have any?
There was so many, but the one that comes to mind just right now, since I know this is gonna go on YouTube, was when he puts her to work to caulk somebody's bathroom, and she's like, I've never caulked a bathroom in my life. And he says, well, that's why Creator gave us YouTube. I love it. I love it so much. The humor, the jokes. Okay, so what happened, and again, this is a spoiler, so Regan was engaged to this guy named Ray, this Native guy named Ray, right? And she dumped him the night before the wedding. And so his mother, Rayanne, is one of the council members, right? And so Terry takes Regan over there and just like, oh my gosh, Rayanne is so upset and is like, how did you bring this? What did she call her? Homewrecker? This homewrecker into my house?
Homewrecker. Yep, homewrecker.
And I just love how she said, because of you, Ray married a white woman.
Yep.
I was just laughing. I was just laughing so hard. And then how Terry had to like turn on her to kind of get Rayanne's support. I mean, he did in a way, I guess you could say he did like use her, but he did give her something in return. And that was her having an opportunity to participate in the community and to, like how he said, everybody else have that cathartic moment. Okay, she put in some hours. She put in some hours finally here, and maybe we can forgive and move on from her leaving Ray, so that she could be back in the community again and not just be so ostracized. But it was interesting that she had to learn that the hard way, that Terry had to show her that the hard way, that she has to participate, that she has to put in those hours and take those hits, right?
Yeah, no, it truly was hilarious. But why did you actually catch Rayanne was the chairwoman?
Oh, she's the chairwoman. Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
She was the chairwoman.
Okay.
And a funny interaction that happened like the next morning, right, when Terry comes to the cultural center, which is funny enough, right? It's kind of like a joke, right? It's in the middle of the casino,
in
this
this like
really small
little
room.
corner, yeah. It's like hidden away, and the tourists or the folks come in and they think that's like, oh, this is for sale. It's like, no, it's the cultural center. Get out of here.
Yeah. No, it's. I found it very interesting. Just the whole dynamic of it's true how they paint this picture of, sometimes it's a huge casino, and it's got this really small section to it. It kind of reminds me of this casino here that's pretty close to us. It's Golden Acre Casino. It's Kumeyaay, and the casino's it's pretty huge. It's huge. It's a huge casino. And the cultural center is this like closet.
Oh my God, no way.
Maybe 10 by 10, and it's got artifacts on it, and that's it. It's got two sections that explain, give a little biography of who the original inhabitants of the land were. That's it. That's how deep into detail it goes, and sometimes they have someone there explaining, but it is kind of true. So sometimes I think that perhaps it's because some of these artifacts need to be kept away from the public eye, so some of these more culturally important artifacts, but it's still very interesting. You can definitely see that in a lot of casinos, how there's this really small section, cultural center, cultural museum.
We're gonna be looking out for those, right? We're gonna go visit the casinos and be like, where's your cultural center?
That's right. If, casino CEOs, we're coming for you. We're gonna go visit casinos. You guys are gonna give us a reason to gamble, but we're gonna go check out your cultural centers. We're gonna rate you on the scale of one through Rutherford Falls. So, how close you are to them.
It's funny because when I was watching this with Andres, my husband was saying, is it bad that every time they show the casino, I want to go to the casino? Like, it got him wanting to go to the casino. Now that we're vaccinated, he's like, oh, maybe we should go to the casino. Every time he sees the casino, he sees those people playing in the show. He wants to be one of them.
There you go. It's working. It truly is working. So it's a win-win for Indian country, huh? This show, yeah. It's attracting people to the casino.
That was the whole point all along, right? It's hidden agenda to get people to go play.
Is this what we're gonna have to? If we get to interview the writers, we're gonna have to ask them: is this reverse psychology where you just bring mass gatherings into casinos?
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't played blackjack in a while, and yeah, I have to tell you something. After watching this, I really kind of want to go check it out.
Oh man, so it's working.
It's working. I'm telling you, it's working.
Or even when Regan is put to work, she's actually handing out Indian tacos. And she's sweating. She's handing out Indian tacos.
Yeah, she is.
But that's what it took. And it brought me back to my ACES days at UC Davis when we would be making Indian tacos just to raise what little funds we could to go to conferences. It's like, yeah, I remember that. I remember, just smelling like fry bread coming home.
Yeah, and it's just very interesting. And another thing that caught my attention is just the kind of humor that's depicted there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it to me when Regan comes and presents her project, right? She wants to make this expansion of the cultural center, and it's kind of true. It always has this this idea of people working in cultural, either linguistic or cultural departments, always coming with these like humongous projects, right? To your higher up, right? And you're here with your project, like this is going to change the world, like this is going to make everyone go fluent on the language. And you go to them and you're thinking like, yeah, I'm going to get their support. Like, this is like you couldn't even sleep the night before with this idea just circling your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing they ask you is like, yeah, how much is this going to cost? Instead of saying like, yeah, you did an awesome job. Like, I'm going to take some of these ideas. They just tell you like flat out, like, how much is this going to cost?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, $650,000. He's like, yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not going to happen. But later on, he goes and presents this project to her, Do you remember what the name of the operation is called?
Running Lightning?
Running Lightning. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, but before we get to the project, it was, I have to note when did you notice when Regan approached Terry about the cultural center?
Yeah.
And she asked, well, when is it gonna, when can we do this? When can we do something like this? And Terry's like, when the sun sets. He gets all like when the sun
that's what I was going to.
sets
yeah,
on the horizon and the eagle flies, something like that. And so Regan's like, okay, I'm not a white tourist. Tell me the truth. And he's like, 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, 3 to 5 years.
And we were talking about that, like even the 1491s, they have some skits like that where it's like you become, or you see folks that, and it's to get by, it's to maneuver, right? That the mainstream is to be a little bit performative. Right, to kind of like play the part just to get what you need, and that's a survival mechanism. But just how they presented it was just hilarious. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting. There's this, and it's kind of escaping my mind. If I remember, I'm gonna bring it up. But there's this article about speaking or playing Apache or something along those lines. But it's this very famous article that was written in linguistic anthropology that basically speaks to how the Apache have this way of acting, right? And it's acting in front of the white man.
Mm-hmm.
The white man thinks, that they're actually, playing to their sense of the ideology of what an Indian looks like or what an Indian is. But in reality, little do they know that they're actually mocking them, right?
Yeah.
So this is how I kind of see, Terry's response here. He's kind of mocking a little bit he's picking a little bit on Regan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of just in a little bit like, almost like saying like, yeah, you've been off the reservation for a while, like, you need to buy your way in, like, yeah, I'm gonna bullshit you with this answer, right? But she turns out to be like very sharp, she's like, yeah, dude, like, no, man, they're telling you again.
We're so into this show, you guys. We can't stop falling over. So I can't stop falling over laughing about this show. Just there's so many good points.
It's very small. And going back to that, he's called Keith Basso, and the article's called Portraits of the White Man.
Oh wow! Okay.
Play and cultural symbols in Western Apache society. So if you guys are looking to read a really good article that deals with a humor that's similar to the one portrayed here between interactions of, Native people and the settlers and Native people with Native people, it might give you some context, the Basso article, the white man, play in cultural symbols in Western Apache. So I had to read that article like 4 times for my academic career.
Oh,
so
really?
I'm gonna punish some of you guys, make you guys read it. It's a good article.
I think that's one of to encourage folks, right? Because we talk about heritage language learners, to encourage you guys to learn your language. you could say the most randomest thing, in front of non-natives that don't know what you're saying, and you could make it sound so beautiful, but you could be saying something like that's, I don't know, just call them salty, right? Instead of saying thank you, just be like chiokoe, 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 and just be calling people salty the whole time. I think that's a motivation to learn our language, definitely, is to be able to have those moments that are just for us, that they don't know what we're saying, but it's like we get to play with it a little bit, right? We get to play around
absolutely. With it. And we actually we have kind of an interesting story. Why were you there or so why has missed one class, one language class?
I've only missed one class, and it was a neighbor's fault.
Maybe this was the class that you missed. I don't know, but we had a class member, actually, Olympia.
Hi, Olympia.
And so there's this saying in Yoeme language that says "Mom suwa," which basically means take care, or you take care, right? But if you say "Mom suwa" without putting emphasis on the double U that's on the word, it means kill yourself.
Oh my God.
So,
I missed that class.
Olympia kept saying, or not Olympia, but Olympia asked me, like, because we introduced last names in UM, or the application of last names. And I told him how Sua, S-U-A, means to kill, right? Mm-hmm. or to assassinate, mm-hmm. right? And she looked at her notes and she says, oh, so all this time I've been saying, like, go kill yourself. And I said, no, that's not it. I said, M-O-M Sua means go take care of yourself, or take care. But if we say M-O-M Sua, means go kill yourself, So it's again,
we gotta be careful. We gotta be careful ourselves.
Yeah. The way we speak is powerful, and just a little snippet of the class, as we were saying, so. But native humor, right? Native humor. So I'm sure in native humor, sometimes we tell people, go,
just throw a little shade, right? Just throw a little shade. Yeah.
Going back to the idea that you had mentioned, we have so many native artists, native actors in this show that it truly is unbelievable. The native representation,
definitely,
that this show is casting is really important, because in the past we have had actors who play native characters who are not necessarily native or tribally affiliated, with any native community, and this is totally different in this case. Do you have anything to say about that?
You have a term, Sai, Hollywood Indian, and that's always about, like, those folks that are native that get to be extras, and they think they're hot stuff because they were an extra in a movie. And so I was thinking about that the other day when I was watching the show, and I was thinking, these folks are actually included in the show. They're included in the writing process and in the comedy, and we get to learn more about their complicated, histories. And so I'm like, okay, so they're not Hollywood Indians, but they're out there. We know they're out there. So shout out to the Hollywood Indians that are extras on the movie sets. But it is concerning, though, because I don't know how it is for non-natives, but what I assume is that, oh, well, if you look the part, it's fine, right? You can fake it till you make it, right? That's the saying that goes with it. But it's really concerning because it's taking opportunity away, and it's also taking the input away from Indigenous folks actually getting to tell their own narratives. So it's very, I'm glad there's a show like this to kind of kick that off and kind of set that aside and say, look, we're going to include these voices and let them be heard and not just speak over them or speak for them.
I have something to add to that, why, and not necessarily about this whole idea of the native cast, but I think, and we can clearly see that the influence that Sierra Taylor has in writing this show really goes far beyond just including someone of native ancestry as a writer. She wasn't just included. You can tell she is actually taking a huge part of the writing process, because these ideas don't I sure know they're not coming from Ed Helms himself. A lot of this native humor has to come from a native person.
Yeah. And just for them to I don't know if you want to talk about the racist professor and some of the stuff that he's done, because he's definitely not toasted, just so folks know. The professor's not toasted. when I saw them and they did a podcast, which I thought it was hilarious because we were over here trying to do a podcast. When I saw them doing the podcast with Nathan and the professor, and then Bobby, the character Bobby, who's non-binary, by the way, shout out to the NBs out there. For them to do a podcast and for the professor to say, oh, aren't you, remember your history? Like, it was the first white baby. And it was just like, oh, I cringed, and I was like, oh man, they're calling it out, they're calling this out. And it's just like, it just felt like yuck. Like, but there have been moments like that, I know in my life, with non-native folks, especially white folks, that'll say something, and it's just like, it's a disheartening kind of moment. Like, and so it's just, it was so in our face, right? They put it right there, this whole concept of, like, when it comes to race, that there's still this ongoing racism and this ongoing erasure of Native identity and Indigenous history. Yeah, it was just, I mean, that couldn't have come from, I mean, that had to have been what's her name again? Can you say it one more time? Sierra.
I think I might be getting her last name wrong. It's spelled Teller.
Teller, okay. Sierra Teller. Yeah.
Yeah, Sierra Teller. And actually, I was reading this article right before the podcast, right before we started the podcast. I was reading this article where she gives basically an interview for the article. I can't remember the news source of the article. Let me see if I have it here on my phone.
Sure.
Let me see. It is slate.com.
Okay.
It says, so yeah, slate.com. It's supposed to be this news media thing. I found it on Facebook, by the way, but Sierra there is giving a short excerpt in which she basically says, I was told continuously for years that the way I write, or my intention behind my writing, was never going to receive the attention it did in this show. And she says, to me, this is monumental. This is huge because what I've been told, what I've been hearing all this time, we all get to witness it in this show, right? And it isn't just something that seems to be done at a small scale. This seems to be done in a huge way. This production, the quality is really good. You can tell that overall it's a really good produced show.
Yeah.
So props to Peacock and all the people who invested money into this series for it to flourish into what it is.
Yeah, we gotta definitely be grateful and give thanks to that, right? It's a celebratory moment for us, right? To have
they must have some toasted people there.
I know. We gotta send them T-shirts or something.
Yeah, hashtag toasted. That's incredible. I truly appreciated that, and for me, it was something that's really definitely worth promoting. This show is worth promoting.
Yeah,
it truly is. I think it's something that everyone will benefit from.
And it doesn't have to just be only Native folks, right? That everyone, is literally everybody can benefit from watching this show.
Absolutely, everyone. Why it brings me to this discussion point that I thought I was going to bring earlier, but I think this is the perfect time to do so. Even though it's and they do mention Columbus once.
Oh yeah, we hold grudges. Yeah, like Terry says to Regan.
All the interaction between Terry and Regan.
Yeah, Regan was like, "Why? How could people still be mad at me?" And then Terry says, "Well, we're known for holding grudges. We still, we still don't like Columbus or something about It was a little slight, like a little jab, and I love that. I love that they did so many jabs on these things. So
yeah, it's a jab with authority, though, as we say in boxing. You're not just marking the punch. It's a jab that almost looks like a straight.
Oh.
It kind of reminds me to this whole idea of the statue, right? Because our next episode, our next podcast episode, we're gonna have a great host, named David Garcia. So we invite you guys to check out our third episode with our first guest. But in that show, he discusses how Orange County, which is a city in California, basically passed this resolution, and it was just approved for Columbus Day to be changed to Indigenous Peoples Day, right? But this is something that is not done nationwide yet, right? It's something that only certain cities are partaking on. but it brings in this interesting ideology that kind of compares it to what Nathan is going through, right? The erasure of their family history. When I was at UCLA, we were campaigning to change for LA City the name of, Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. And one of the things that we were faced when we were calling people, council members and, Chamber of Commerce representatives to gather support to change this day, from a naming based on the ideology of genocide to Indigenous Peoples Day to celebrate Indigenous people. There was a lot of reluctance from the Italian community, Italian American community in the city, in any city. And one of the things that I heard from those people themselves when I got to interview them was the fact that they consider him, a descendant. They're proud in coming from someone like that, and they say, how can our forefather, because that's what they consider him, a forefather, and it's kind of like the same way Nathan is speaking, Larry Rutherford is a forefather of everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone, he says. So I kind of see comparisons there between, certain communities and certain support they have behind, certain ideologies. And it brings me to another point, and I know I keep bringing these points up, but when what was it, BRB, when they were playing BRB, the brother and Nathan,
the triple B, but the brother's like B. BRB.
Yeah, he was a BRB. Yeah, that's right, triple B. His brother, would you consider him toasted after the explanation?
It caught me off guard when he said, our family's done some, what did he say? How did he describe it? Some horrible or some...
He said horrific
things. And they alluded to that, but they didn't say exactly what it was. They weren't explicit of what he was talking about. So it did catch me off guard, and it did make me curious. It's like, oh, this brother, what's he about? What's going on there? What does he know? And what are they gonna expose? What are they gonna expose when it comes to the Rutherford history in this show?
It still kind of has me holding onto my chair, literally and symbolically. I've fallen off my chair twice on today's episode. So I'm holding onto my chair for dear life right now. But that folder he has on his hands, that red folder that's supposed to have secrets from the family, maybe it has some things that are going to be revealed. I don't know, in the future. So I'm still wondering. There's some people that could become toasted along the way, or maybe are toasted and they still haven't reflected their values, right? But yeah, I was taken by surprise by that interaction, right? It really took me by surprise. He did mention, however, that look at us now, and he did mention so and so they're cheating on their wife.
Yeah, it kind of threw it off a little bit for me when he was like, oh well, look, he brought it to the present moment. When I was hoping he would talk about the history. The full history, not just the sugar-coated history.
Very, very, very important, and again, it all goes back to this whole idea, right? That are people really trying to erase history? Because people argue like history is there for a reason. It's very powerful writing, I think. Very, very powerful, and it's done with comedy, so it might have the best effect, Yeah. Any other observations? So we're just talking about the first 3 episodes. Again, we need per cap to purchase the premium subscription. We don't have any per cap, so it's not happening at the moment.
I know we have a few more minutes left, but I'm thinking like I gotta say I really appreciate that the writers have not only a non-binary actor but also a non-binary character, which is Bobby. And so I'm just glad that they're bringing in these intersections not only of race but also gender identity. And even with the dynamic between Regan and Nathan, there is this, it's not only that she's Native, she's also a Native woman having to uplift him and support him and coddle him and all these things. So they bring in a lot of these intersections that I'm just so impressed by, and I look forward to seeing more. I look forward to them exploring those more.
Absolutely. I also really, it was towards the end, but there was kind of like this idea presented, because we are told that Regan she's kind of depicted a little bit. I get the idea. Correct me if I'm wrong. Audience, correct me if I'm wrong. White, correct me if I'm wrong. But she's kind of blamed a bit for her decision of leaving, right? Until they meet again, right? She's getting her coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and Ray comes up, you know, with his wife, and she thanks the wife thanks Regan, and so does Ray for, you know, that was basically the best thing that happened to Ray. You know, it was eye-opening. It helped him grow. You know, he left his couch. He finally grew up into a man.
Yeah.
Right. And we can kind of get this context, like, wow, like Regan really was against, you know, her back was against the wall when it came to this decision, because, you know, Ray wasn't really mature for a relationship at that time when we analyze that context, right? And then she meets Josh, right? And we kind of see, we kind of see, you know, or at least, I don't know how you thought about that, but we do see a lot of leadership in Regan, right? Because she's the one kind of like sparking these, you know, these conversations. She's the one like igniting the fire and keeping it lit, you know, between them. So I thought that was pretty dope, the way she truly carries herself like a matriarch, not just, you know, a community member, but also a matriarch in the making, right? The way she makes these calls and moves, and
matriarch she's in the making, yes.
Yeah, really, really cool stuff. So I'm excited for the upcoming episodes. I'm excited for this show. So
we'll probably, if we get a subscription, we'll try doing another episode. Maybe this will be a little series, right? A little mini series on the next 3, and then the next 3, and then we have to have, I don't know what the final has, but we'll have to have a whole episode on just the final for this first season.
Absolutely. So, you know, comment down below. We want to hear you guys' opinions. If you guys are not following, we have an Instagram page. Why? What's our Instagram page?
So it's at Pursuing Ancestral Medicine. So because I know we're called Yo FM, but that was already taken. I don't know who took it. So we had to do at Pursuing Ancestral Medicine. So check us out on Instagram. We're pretty more active on Instagram than Facebook at the moment. And then definitely we have the YouTube. So that's Cesar's YouTube. We'll be posting episodes there as well. And SoundCloud. We have the SoundCloud. Yeah. So Pursuing Ancestral Medicines on the SoundCloud.
And hopefully soon we're going to be on Apple.
We're still figuring that out, you guys. We're rookies. We're rookies at this.
Rookies. We also have a Facebook page, so give us a follow on that. Check us out there. On Instagram, one thing I did notice that is really, really cool. You're inviting the audience to interact, ask questions, ask us anything.
Anything, yes.
Anything, and that truly stands up to what we believe in, right? We really want to make sure that this podcast is as much ours as it is you guys as the audience. So feel in confidence, you know, ask us hard questions, anything you want, and yeah, we're pretty excited about this. So hopefully you guys can stay on this journey with us.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, take care, and until next time. Our next episode, when does it drop, Why?
It's going to be Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday.
Yeah, so stay tuned. And this is a special podcast episode because Rutherford Falls is a special series. So stay in touch with us.